The Plan Path.
Hi, guys, and welcome to Plant Path Podcast today. This is your place for book reviews and crucial conversations in education. The show is brought to you by Plant Path Consult, your choice up for everything education, trainings, counseling, consulting, and lots more. All right, my name is Oluwatosi Mugbaduade, and I'm your host on the show. Okay, today we are talking about Nigerian schools versus sex education. First off, let me say this. Let me say the fact that we have this flyer that we usually put out on our social media platforms, and then we ask people what kind of topics and conversations they want us to talk about, and also the kind of books they want us to review. The funny thing is that usually people don't would not come to our comments to talk. They'll probably just like the post and go. Usually people come to our DM, send us mails and talk to us about those kind of things they want to hear. Okay, and this is one of such topics that Tosin, Plumper Consult, Plumper Podcast. Let's talk about this issue of sex education in schools. Okay, so I don't know if you are currently frowning your face like, why are we talking about sex over here? All right, so first of okay, another thing I would also like to say is that we had an episode on let's talk about condoms on World Condom Day, 13th of February 2022, and trust me, that episode was just the bomb. It was a banger. You should go back and listen to it. Um, World Condom Day is celebrated the day before Valentine's, and it was very nice to listen to it. And then we also have an episode that speaks about joy in the workplace. Um, Joy Incorporated, how we built a workplace that people love. I mean, love up on yourself and learn things to build a workplace culture that people will love and you would also like as well, love as well. Okay, so you can go back and listen to that and other previous episodes. Remember to share, like, with your friends and comment and all. Okay, so back to our conversation on Nigerian schools versus sex education. Okay, so you're probably frowning your face at why are we talking about sex and everything. But then we know that all human beings they drink we all drink water. It's not even deep because I drink water as well. We drink water, we eat, we breathe in air, and trust me, a lot of adults have sex. A lot of adults. I mean, if you're probably not even having sex at the moment, you had probably had sex before, or you plan to have sex in the future. Okay, a very good case in point is high school slum books. I mean, you know those books in high schools, those what they call is slum books that you do with your friend, or even the official one that the school releases. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? A lot of people would say, I want to see myself getting married. I mean, very few people will say they are not getting married. And in fact, people that even say that they are not getting married, they still get married a lot of the times. And that is not really like doesn't seem like it's going to change soon because marriage is ingrained in our culture in Africa and like as Nigerians. I mean, the typical African parent, Nigerian parent, if they hear you say that you don't want to get married, they will just even sit down on your matter immediately. All right, so if sex is that important, if it's part of our everyday life, it's just funny that Nigerians don't like talking about sex, but like people are having sex. That's very funny to me, really. Because why don't you want to talk about it? Why don't you want to get education about it? If you do, if you are obviously doing it like in your privacy and everything, okay, so maybe it's a whole morality thing. It's all good. So today we'll be talking about sex education. I mean, if we really need to be paying attention to the kind of sex education that our children receive. Okay, let me flash back to my own generation. I was born in the early 90s, and then one of the things that I see as a trend. I mean, I was talking to one of my friends yesterday, and I was asking him that, oh, what kind of sex education? I always ask this kind of questions randomly, just ask people as I go about my day. So I asked him that, okay, so what kind of sex education did you receive as a young person while you were growing up? And he said something very touching. He said that, trust me, what I received was even more damaging. Like he did a lot of harm than good, and Trust me, that is not a nice thing. I wasn't happy to hear that. I was like, really? Okay, all right. And it made me think that that's really the case with a lot of us young people, that we didn't get like the kind of sex education we're supposed to get at home. And trust me, we should do better than our parents, because right now, okay, maybe back then there was no internet, or it wasn't even widespread, and our parents could get away with keeping us like in the dark and everything. My own parents, at least they tried, they still spoke to us about a couple of things, and I like we weren't of it, like oblivious, like 100% oblivious about stuff. You understand? I feel they would have done better. Okay, if I am to rate them in sex education, I'll probably give them a 55% or maybe 60. At least they tried, they still spoke about it, they didn't leave us in the dark, and when we asked questions they answered us and everything. So but for a lot of people that's not the case, and we can do better, trust me, with the coming generation. So I picture myself right now, having a daughter or a son, like, or both of them, having children, and now talking to them about sex. How am I going to do that? Like, okay, so it's very possible. Uh, a lot of people freak out when they hear, when they like even think about the idea of talking to their children about sex. Like, am I going to tell them how to trust, trust, and what am I supposed to say exactly? Okay, so I have a book. Funny thing is that my first book that I actually wrote in my life, like wrote and published like properly and sold out and everything, is called Unleashing the Sex Talk. How to talk about to your children about sex, and it has something for every age group. This book is available. You want a copy? Slide into the DM or go to our website, linktree/ plumper consult. You see a link to get the book there, Unleashing the Sex Talk. And trust me, that book is amazing, very straight to the point and everything. So back to our talk on sex. So there are some things that, so if parents are supposed to talk to their children about sex, at least unleashing with the sex talk and other resources can help you, like as parents, like things you're supposed to say to your children and everything and all of that. If you actually need me to come to your school to talk about how to talk to your children about sex and doing the whole sex education thing, me personally as Tosin Mubadon or as Plumper Consult, you can always reach out and you can book a session with us. That's something we'll be willing to do with you. A collaboration we'll be willing to do with you. Okay, so if parents are supposed to talk to their children about sex, that means that in schools too, there is going to be a place of school that in this whole sex thingy. Because there's this thing we say in education that, and I always tell people that's what things that are supposed to be taught at home, morals and everything. When the child comes to school, the school will corroborate it, like would enhance what the child knows, morality and everything. And the things that are supposed to be taught in school, academics and everything, you understand? When the child goes back home, the parents would reinforce that learning as well. So everything comes together, you understand? So the school is not primarily responsible for teaching your child morality and all of those. Although naturally those things happen in school, but the primary responsibility of that lies in the at home, like lies in the hands of the parents, in the hands of the family and everything. And this is very, 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 very essential and important for us to think about, especially in this our world today. So there are like 5 things that, okay, let me say 7, 8 things that I'd like to talk to you, that they are important conversations that you should think about. Let's go on a quick commercial break. We'll be right back to talk about these things that you should know about sex education.
The blonde pop.
All right, welcome back from the break. That was quite a short break. Okay, so what you should know about sex education, or some things, some thoughts that I had in my head that I said let me share with you on this episode. Number one is that the curriculum is about the Nigerian curriculum. Okay, first of all, that curriculum needs an entire overhaul. In fact, the entire national policy on education needs like to be remixed, if I should say it that way. Because okay, so there's really no sex education topic in Nigerian schools at the moment. Okay, so we have some of these things in health education, like social studies, what is called civic education now, biology. We have those things here and there inside the topics and everything, but we don't have a sex education class, you understand? And even counselors are not even given that due place to be able to do all of these kind of talks and advocacies and everything. Even all these assembly talks of children like that happen in school, which they are a very nice way, a very good way to learn. Usually they don't do explicit talk about sex, and that's something that really needs to be paid attention to. Like, if you have a school or you are involved in anything education, you should actually be talking to a school, your child's school, and say that, what are you telling my child about sex? There should be a curriculum. It doesn't now, it may not actually even be a subject, understand? There should be a plan that in an academic year, maybe a teacher, a sex expert, a this, a parent comes to say something about sex and sexuality to children, maybe even on the assembly. This is a very important part of our that should be an important part of our school curriculum. That's number one thing. Second thing is that I always ask people that, do you think that schools should teach abstinence? Because okay, so before, okay, so mostly a lot of people, if you ask people that, what did your parents teach you about sex, what did your teachers say, what were you taught in school, what did your pastors tell you, what did your imams tell you, what did your, what do you call it, your traditional worshiper leader or whatever told you, that what did they tell you while you were growing up about sex? It is just the Nike item, don't do it. Nike is just do it, you understand? But like, we just say, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Three words, don't do it. I mean, that is such a vague thing to say to somebody. Don't do what? Why shouldn't I do what? What is the do? You understand? Like, it's just so vague. And trust me, children of now of these days, they are very inquisitive. Their minds are very inquisitive. I mean, there's this statistic that says that in a day, a child even as young as 0 year old, like he's not even up to 1 year old, sees a sexual content online because they watch YouTube, they do all of these things, they are at home and something is flashing on the screen, they see at least 10 flashes of sexual screen in a day. And think about it, like really think about it, they probably even hear from their parents or a commercial on TV or somebody talking about, oh, very worse if they are now going to crash already. It's not like the teachers are talking about it, but at least they are commuting from home to school, and there's a high probability that they will hear something about sex and sexuality. Okay, so that's something very important to think about. Like, that's something very important to think about. Are you going to teach your child abstinence? Are we supposed to teach our children abstinence? Okay, so whatever we want to do in the light of this abstinence matter, because that's very important. A lot of people did not, like, did not mess up, quote unquote, because their parents like told them about abstinence, you understand, like don't do it and everything, don't have sex, wait till you're married, wait till you are more matured and everything. In this abstinence matter, there are like maybe a couple of things I should say about it. So before you settle not to teach your child abstinence, first of all, ensure that you're not creating fear in the heart of your child. That's very important. I mean, people get, in fact, a lot of maybe intelligent people and everything, that were very serious about the good children in school, quote and unquote. They get married and they are frigid. Yeah, frigid. They don't see sex as a, like, they don't see sex to be enjoyed. Even God, eh, initiated sex to be enjoyed. It's a very sweet something. So imagine that you not have a child, you not say, don't do it, it's bad, this, blah blah. So the only thing that child gets to hear about sex is that it is bad, it is a sin, it's not good. Like, that's, like, it may work in the short run. I feel like, oh, my child is good, my child isn't having sex. But are you thinking about the long run when that child is like a lot grown and maybe is now struggling to have a good sex life with their partners, like their spouses and everything? So you should be really thinking about it. If you're teaching abstinence, Don't make sure you're not teaching from the point of danger, that kind of don't do it. If you do it, rapture will happen and you will die, you go to hellfire. Please don't do that. Not these days. If at all you are even teaching, you're bringing a point of view to your child by saying don't engage in sex now, you should wait and everything. You need to be giving these children reasons. Like, have you heard the average child, the average toddler ask you questions? Even the adolescent, the question is always why. Why mommy? Why daddy? Why? Like that why question. Parents literally freak out. This is like, so saying, why are my children asking me why? I say, yes, you need to tell them why. Like, you need to really explain to them, you understand? You need to tell them why preaching the abstinence game. And in fact, that even lasts longer in the long run, because when you're not there, they now get like personally meaningful reasons not to have sex before they get married. It's not just a my mommy told me not to. It's already part of them, you understand, like their culture, their subconsciousness and everything. So if you're preaching abstinence, you need to be aware of these things, you understand, and make sure you're not creating what they call it, causing damage, you understand, like to your child, what they call it, attitude towards sex. Also, you should also ensure that you're not talking from a point of disease. I mean, you see people talking about sex to teenagers and they'll just say, if you don't do it, if the conversation now continues from don't do it, we now hear, if you do it, you get HIV, you get AIDS, you get pregnant, the boy will leave you, your education will stop. Relax, calm down for Jesus, like just calm down. It's not that deep. Oh. If you're talking about sex, make sure that abstinence point of view, you're presenting that sex is a good thing. God gave us sex to enjoy. It's actually pleasurable, but it's more beneficial to you if you can actually wait. The reasons you're supposed to wait is because of A, B, C, D. Come to go and read Unleashing to the Sex Talk. You understand? If you want to know more of this, or come to any of my master class that talks about how to talk to your children about sex. Don't let me spill all the gist for you. Okay, so next thing we should talk about is normalizing sex education. Like, talk about, see, I was telling somebody earlier in the week, we were having a conversation. The person told me like quite a number of things. And one of the things I was telling the person is that, you know what, the truth of the matter is that some of these things I can't relate to it. Because while growing up, my parents did not even make it look like it was like anything. Yoruba would say babara. Like it wasn't a big deal. We just spoke about it like, sex, this. Like this, even when I'm just with my dad. For example, if I tell my dad that, oh, I'm actually even like seeing somebody, I met somebody, like I hung out with the person. We can just like talk about sex like casually and just like talk about it and move to other things. Like it's not like they will now start scolding me or anything about sex. Because it's one reality that a lot of parents have to like come to terms with the fact that there's a probability that child is having sex. Especially when your child is graduated, your child is probably not even in the house and stuff like that. These are realities that you have to like face as a parent, that it is possible my child is, and it's possible that my child isn't, you understand. So ensure that you're doing all of this stuff, like normalizing sex education. One of the things I wrote in my book is that, see, you know what, put sex education books around your children, like put in the house sex education. I know the late Pastor Nomthi Odukoya. Oh, my dear Pastor Nomthi, it actually feels very weird to call her late Pastor Nomthi. Dr. Pastor Nomthi Odukoya has books about sex education, and they are very, very good, very, very good books. There's Unleashing the Sex Stuff there. There's just a lot of books around that you materials, even indigenous content that relate to the Nigerian setting that you can actually buy, you understand, and like put around your children. Normalize sex education, let them feel comfortable talking about it, because the truth is that once you establish that trust, it's easier when they are adults, when they are teenagers and everything, because you already like built like a culture of openness with your children and everything. So we should actually be normalizing sex talk. Another thing I'd also like to say about these Nigerian schools and sex, you understand. So in schools, like, don't, when a child, there's a way, oh god, but then I've seen people, like maybe a child talks about sex as a question, it will now translate to school gist. Everybody in the school will be talking about it, that let's say for example, Emmanuel asked teacher this about sex or something. I remember something what that happened in my biology class in SS1. I remember that we're talking about marijuana. There was just something about recreational drugs and everything that we're just talking about. So I now said marijuana. My friend was now trying to correct me that I remember my friend Uche Tegbe, my classmate then. Uche was saying that it is not marijuana that is marijuana. So we had that argument, and then we're using the dictionary, you understand? So eventually I agreed that it was marijuana and all. But what happened was that in the middle of that, the teacher heard us saying Mr. Deyemi. The teacher heard us saying marijuana, and maybe he felt that maybe we're on drugs or something. I remember that Mr. Deyemi took us to the principal back then. And I don't like people, I didn't like it, like being flogged in school or anything, and I had to explain, like we had to explain to Princey then, hey, Mrs. Oluboboko, she's late now. Late Mrs. Oluboboko, we had to explain to Princey then that no, we weren't talking about we don't take marijuana, blah 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 blah. And in fact, so if I'm sure that if Mr. Adeyemi cannot even do that kind of thing in 2022 now, like, so if a child should ask about sex, ask questions, don't make it look like anything. The way a girl sees her period and it translates to school, just everybody knows this person was staying in school yesterday, so this person is now seeing her period. Like, I mean, don't make it look like anything, like it's normal. Let the boys know about what they call it, periods and everything. Don't close their ear. Don't, yeah, there's some information you should tell only the girl, but at least let them know as well, because they will have sisters, they have colleagues, they will have wives, they have spouses, they will have nephews and nieces around them, that's female nephews and nieces around them, and this information will be very, they would even have daughters in the long run, you grow up. So very important, think about that. Okay, so another thing we should also think about in Nigerian schools is disconnection. I mean, don't let we know we're talking about advocating for sexual education in schools. Trust me, whatever we are teaching to these kids, let's ensure that it is real, like it is very realistic. I mean, if you're talking about, I like to take practical experiences, like all of these examples I'm giving you. Like if I'm teaching children, if I'm in a master class, if I'm in a seminar, I like to give practical examples. Okay, so for example, if you're talking about transgender, for example, you understand, or if you're talking about homosexuality to a Nigerian school, you understand, like children, Nigerian schools, one of the examples you should honestly give is maybe James Brown, Bobrisky. These are examples that, like, real life examples they can relate to. They will even laugh, you understand. Oh, they're on Instagram, they can see all of this, they're on TikTok, you understand, they can see all of these things. Okay, so if you're a teacher and you're talking about maybe online dating, you should talk about the movie Tinder Swindler that is like trending on Netflix right now. These children need to know like real life examples. Don't give them examples from that. Don't teach them something that they can't connect it, or don't just come to the podium and say, "Do not do it. God will do this." Blah 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 blah, and walk away. Like the children are just looking at you like whatever. Like you just said your own, and I know what I'm going to do. Very, very important. Make sure that there's a connect between what you're thinking, teaching the kids, and what is like obtainable in reality. Make sure the information I'm giving are things that they can make use of. Also, we should also think about teacher responses. We already mentioned that already. We should also think about rigid gender categories. This one, like, I can't cite enough. Okay, so in Nigerian schools we have boys toilet, girls toilet. These are things we need to think about going forward and in the long run. So if a child wants to, like, is a child allowed to be homosexual in peace, or we just all have to be heterosexual? These are questions, burning questions that teachers, schools, you understand, and education institutions need to start answering in advance, because in advance, in first world countries, we're already seeing these things that a parent come and says that my child is a transgender male or a transgender female. You grab those kind of things. So we really need to think about things. Are we going to provide bathroom spaces for all of these different sexual orientations and everything? So yeah, let's think about it. Very, very important. Let's think about those stuff. So the last thing I would like to say, like to reinforce what I said before, is teacher responses, teacher responses to sexual issues. We need to think about it very, very well. And me, I'm very excited when I see young people in the education space on LinkedIn, on Twitter, like people working in education space, working with Teach for Nigeria. And I hope that these people actually have amazing careers in education, and that in the long run, you understand, in the very, very long run, people are able to like this kind of young blood people are able to come into the education space and like bring lasting impact to like contemporary issues like this. Okay, so this was actually nice in this episode with you. Thanks for listening to this point. Thanks for always listening to us, sharing. Like it's been such an amazing time with you. There are so many exciting book reviews on our part on this platform and on all of our platforms. You should actually listen to them. You should entirely share with your friends. We are learning and growing together on Podcast. If you have any book you want us to review or any insightful conversation you want us to talk about, we'll be glad to do that. You can always reach out to us on all of our social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or you can send us a mail at you can send a mail to planpathc@gmail.com, and we'll be glad to listen to you and you understand, act on your feedback and everything. Thank you so much. Remember to contact Plan Pack Consult for your trainings, your teacher trainings, your counseling sessions, collaborations on your project. For example, you're having an NGO project and you need logistics like to go to a school, you need trainers, you need teachers, you need stuff like that. Remember to just contact us for everything education. We have got you. Our teams are waiting to, you understand, to respond to your needs. And one of the things I love about our teacher training sessions is that we don't just come talk theory. We like to respond to contemporary issues happening in that particular school that we are in, so that we can effect lasting change. Thank you so much. My name is Oluwatosin Mubadumade once again, and I will catch you in our next episode. Bye.